Meeting will come to order. Let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everyone's in attendance tonight except for the mayor. I'm Mayor Pro Tem, so I'll serve in his place, so we'll have 5 council members for this meeting this evening. We'll start with the consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of the approval of minutes of the May 10th meeting, approval of bills and claims. There are no licenses or permits, sale of surplus city property, a sandblaster, a waive of purchasing policy number 0501, sunshade mesh, that's for the Carroll Family Aquatic Center, and water supply well replacement 2020 change order number 3. Are there any questions on any of the?
Mayor Pro Tem, can I just make a quick comment about the minutes? I sent out a copy of the minutes. I had the wrong resolution numbers on there, so they were highlighted with a copy sitting at your desk tonight.
Okay, that's what that was.
If we could just approve those as amended.
Okay. All right, we'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the amended minute numbers, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
So moved.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. We'll go to a vote.
Seaman,
Yes.
Fleishner,
Yes.
Haley,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Cots,
Yes.
Days.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay, this evening we have a retirement, I believe, at the fire department, a very special one this evening. And Greg, would you come on up and
Sure. You guys want to come up? Kim, come on up. Yeah, this is Bob and Kim Shields here, and we always say in the fire department, we're like a family. So Kim is as much part of the fire department as Bob was. We talked about, when Bob got on 26 years ago, I think you said your kids were in 1st and 3rd grade, and they're growing and gone. And that's part of the reason Bob decided he wanted to get off. Now, some asked me if it was a surprise when he was getting off or announced his retirement. And I said, no, not really. I convinced him to stay on another year because he talked about it last year, and Bob was good enough to stay on with us. And just a little bit about Bob. He's worked his way up through the ranks of the command staff on the fire department and really had the respect of every firefighter that we've got. Bob was instrumental. I think it was in 95. We had a fire at 1st and Clark Street, a house in there. The police heard someone inside the house yelling. We got there and it was quiet. And Bob and I think Mike Bach were on the team that went in and pulled the individual out. They did CPR on him and saved him. So that was and Bob, I nominated him for the Governor's Medal of Valor, and he received that. I think it was 95, I believe was the year.
98.
98,
Yep.
okay. So,
Yep.
But anyway, like I say, Bob has just been an outstanding firefighter and a role model for all the newer firefighters that got on, and just heck of a good leader and tough guy to replace. But anyway, with that, I think the mayor has a plaque for you, Bob. And again, I appreciate your service. Thank you so much for the 26 years in Carroll. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
I think Mike's going to get a picture here.
She get in there great.
all of us did that?
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Cheese, cheese, cheese. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to oral requests and communications from the audience. Is there anyone here that would like to bring anything up to this evening?
I was here to talk about the Timberline Road Main Street sidewalk addition.
Okay, we'll get to that then in just a few minutes. We'll,
First
no
time.
problem.
First time.
No, that's
It's
fine.
a little weird being here by myself.
We're not used to have people here at all. It's been a year now, so I'm glad we had somebody back. We got somebody back.
Sorry,
So,
it had to be me. So.
all right, there are no oral requests that we will have for this evening.
Mr. Mayor, do we need to check if there's anyone out and
There's no one online.
no one online? Okay, well, then we don't need to check that.
And we have no ordinance this evening, so we'll move on to resolutions. And the first resolution we have is the fiscal year 2020 to 21 budget amendment number 2, and we'll open a public hearing. It's 5:20 PM at this time. And Laura, do you have anything to
I'll just
discuss?
make comment that it was published in the newspaper on Friday, May 14th, which is in the requirements of state code. There have been no comments received in the office for or against the amendment, so I guess this is a time for anybody else to make any comments about it. Otherwise, I'll be looking for council approval, consideration approval of the resolution that amends our fiscal 22 budget amendment number 2.
All right, any comments from council at all? If not, we'll expect a motion for approving consideration and approval of the resolution amending the fiscal year 2021, 20 and 21 budget amendment number 2.
We need to close the public meeting first.
I'm sorry, we do. All right, we'll need to close the public meeting at 5:21.
Okay, thank you.
And now I'll look for a motion.
So moved. Second.
All right, we'll go ahead and vote.
Cox,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Haley,
Yes.
Base,
Yes.
Fleishner,
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
All right, our next one, resolution is the resolution amending the current budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. I'm sorry, that's what we just did. Right. We'll move on to water service, sewer service, and annexation agreement with Olson's Car Care Corner Incorporated. They do business as Olson's Outdoor Power. And Mike.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Temp and Council. Tonight, this is a request by Olson's Car Care Corner, Inc., doing business outdoor, Olson's Outdoor Power. They own property at 19072 Kitty Hawk Avenue. This property is currently in the process of being annexed into the city of Carroll. The process of annexation, the council has approved that annexation, but it still needs to go to the State City Development Board for final approval. And that process will take another 90 to 120 days to complete. Olson Car Care Corner has requested that the city permit extension and connection of utilities to their property prior to the completion of that annexation. City code only permits properties in the city of Carroll to connect to city water and sewer services without city council approval. So this agreement does give that approval. Additionally, it does require them to complete the annexation going forward, so they can't pull back out of the annexation. So staff is recommending that the mayor and council consider this resolution approving a water, sewer, and annexation agreement with Olson Car Care Corner, Inc., so that they may connect to those utilities. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening.
And Mike, with this 90 to 120 day process that the state's doing, is there any chance that they come back and say, no, we're not going to allow it? And now all of a sudden we've allowed them to hook up and we get into an issue there, or what's our risk?
Yeah, it's a very good question. There's always a risk the state could deny it. With these types of annexations, it's what's called an 80-20 voluntary annexation. The state really looks, did you follow the process for the annexation? So if they would find a defect, they would send it back to the city to really go back through the noticing process that's required. Ultimately, if the state said, no, for some reason, we're not going to allow this annexation to occur, really what we were doing with this annexation was preventing an island. So feral gas was included in the annexation. So the council would have the option to proceed with a total 100% voluntary annexation, exclude feral gas out of it, and then they could still proceed with annexation because we do have them contiguous because of the solid waste. They're also seeking annexation at this point. So I think ultimately there'd be very little risk to the council other than probably delay if there was some procedural thing we did not follow.
Anyone else? All right, if not, we'll look for a motion approving a water service, sewer service, and annexation agreement with Olson's Car Care Center Corner Incorporated.
So moved. Second.
It's been a motion and a second. We'll go to a vote.
Dirks,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Fleishner,
Yes.
Base,
Yes.
Haley.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
All right, we have one report. It's on street restoration 2021 in the Timberline Road, Main Street sidewalk, and Randy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Part of the street restoration project for this year included the analysis, I guess, of a sidewalk on Timberline Road and Main Street. We have prepared that, and the sidewalk is proposed to be located from 111 Timberline Road around to Hillcrest Drive, about 1,050 feet. At Hillcrest Drive, it would connect to an existing sidewalk. Two alternates have been evaluated. The first is a 4-foot sidewalk that's located about 6 feet behind the curb line. The grade of that sidewalk would be adjusted to at or above the street curb. And that's the one that's illustrated on the plan that's attached to your memorandum. The estimated cost, current estimated cost of that is $65,000. The second alternate is the same as alternate 1, with the addition of approximately 240 feet of guardrail. The guardrail would be placed behind the east curb of the Timberline Road Main Street curve, and then the sidewalk would be placed behind that. And with the placement of guardrail, the sidewalk could move up to within about 4 feet of the back of curb, but only through the guardrail area. So the bottom line is there isn't much difference in this cross section between a sidewalk with guardrail and one without. They're very close to each other. The preliminary estimated cost of the alternate with guardrail is about $80,000. And both alternates include a connection to the Sauk Trail, sidewalk connection. So unless there are any questions, I would recommend you consider and select an alternate, and it will proceed with development of that.
The guardrail starts at that address.
No, it would start north of that address. It would be right on the curb itself. That's just a little bit north of where the 111 Timberline Road is.
Would it occupy approximately the same location as the previous guardrail, Randy?
It's a little longer than that one was,
Same
but
vicinity,
about the
but longer.
same. It's on the apex of the curve. That's where you want the guardrail protection.
Randy, would you describe what the guardrail, the design of the guardrail and how high the guardrail will be?
Sure. Guardrails of this type are placed 31 inches above the level of the street. It would be placed immediately behind the back of curb, and it's called a W-beam. It's a steel guardrail that's pretty common. And then there's a block out, and then the posts, and they occupy 15 inches or so in depth. And then the sidewalk would be spaced behind that, a clear zone between the back of the posts and the edge of the sidewalk. So at a minimum distance.
And one other thing, was the 4-foot wide sidewalk selected because of the size of the sidewalk that you're connecting with farther north on Main?
That was one of the considerations, yes. The other consideration was actually the physical occupancy of the sidewalk itself. The area around that curve is limited. It's tight before it starts to drop off. So we tried to get some offset. The 6-foot offset is a customary offset in a street, a 28-foot street on a 50-foot right-of-way, which is what most of our newer subdivisions are. So it's a 6-foot clear zone, really, and then the 4-foot sidewalk. So it really, in fact, I think on Main Street at Hillcrest, it's a 6-foot offset.
Okay.
So it would just kind of continue that
Little
same,
line.
same design.
Match. Okay, thank you.
Now, the sidewalk's gonna go through 2 residential areas to the north of the sidewalk that you're putting in.
Yes, 2 properties.
Okay, I looked at that, I had a little concern about some trees. Are we gonna be removing trees in those properties?
I believe there's one that will have to be removed. I'd have to check for certain on the other one. Any tree that's removed, it would be in the right of way in any case.
Is it gonna be removed or that one is smaller? Do we remove it or replant? I mean, that one, don't replant them?
Either we have not replanted them, I guess anything's negotiable, you know, if you desire to have it replanted.
Well, it's just me talking. I just feel, you know, it's a really nice looking tree and I'm thinking that might be the one we're gonna have to rip out is what I'm worried about.
Okay. Mhm. We can discuss with the property owners, you know, also, and get their input on it.
What do we do for snow removal on the section of this sidewalk that is not, well, that is on public property, not on a private homeowner's property?
The city will remove the snow on that section.
Okay,
I mean, typical, like we do in other public.
I assume, I just wanted to make sure we
Yep.
clarified it. Now, the sections that are on private property will be the owner's responsibility to maintain and clear.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is a sidewalk, not a trail.
Right.
Did you have any comments you'd like to make now? This is your time if you,
This is my time.
yeah, if you'd like,
No
come on up
pressure.
here.
Actually, most of my comments have already been brought up by others. Thank you, guys. I'm Nelson Howcap. I live at 111 Timberline Road, which, as I understand, is going to be the starting point of this, and I'm all in favor of this project. I'm glad it's finally happening, and I can't believe no one's ever been run over on this curve because it's extraordinarily treacherous for pedestrians. I did have a couple of questions about some of the specifics, which have already kind of sort of, some of which have been addressed. I guess my first one was the 3 private homeowners who are being impacted by this. Are we on the hook for any portion of the cost of this sidewalk construction, or is this going to be a city funded thing?
At this point, it's city funded to do the construction, Nelson, but that's where I was saying, you know, when the sidewalk deteriorates in the future, it'll be your responsibility as the property owner to replace what's in front of your home.
Ongoing maintenance. And
Ongoing maintenance as well as snow removal and
Okay.
the like of that would be
Okay.
your responsibility.
I would have expected that. Yep. Okay, that's good news. Speaking of snow removal, that was another question I had. I was curious if, and I understand that we're sort of early in this process, but I do know that the city takes care of the clearing of the sidewalk from the top of Main Street all the way down the hill and all the way to the park. And typically that's the city snow blower stops at the entrance to the park there. And then obviously it's all private from all the way up. So the idea is that snow blower will then drive down the street and resume his clearing at where the current Gronstal property ends, and then he will go up to where my property begins. Is that the general plan here? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I expected that to be the case too. And I am not opposed to managing the snow on my portion, or quite frankly, anybody else's portion. I have a snow blower, and if the other 2 homeowners, you know how it is, no one likes to clear sidewalks, I get it, but I think I hope hopefully that the other 2 homeowners will be of the same thinking and will also, well, I realize there's rules about clearing sidewalks, so they're gonna have to clear their sidewalks. They probably aren't gonna be thrilled about it, but I will be thrilled about it because I'm glad this is happening. Another question I had was, you kind of addressed it with the position, the starting and ending point of this guardrail. It does specify 240 feet of guardrail in the plan. And while I never did actually measure the overall length of the previous guardrail that was there, which kind of finally fell apart and was removed last year, I'm pretty certain that it was less than 240 feet. So I was curious to know if this guardrail is going to start where the sidewalk starts, which is going to be at the east edge of my driveway, or is the guardrail's starting point going to be further down the road in the vicinity of where it was previously?
It'll be further down the road.
Okay.
I'm not sure about previous. That was probably a little short, technically.
Okay.
The other one.
Okay,
So it'll be a little longer.
but the plan is not for the guardrail to run all the way up to the end of my driveway?
No.
Okay. And then, with regard to the distance from the curb to the guardrail and then the guardrail to the sidewalk, I understand the principle of the sidewalk is allowed to be closer to the street because of the presence of the guardrail. And we talked briefly about the tree situation on this curve. My property does follow the majority of this curve, and it comes to kind of a funny little point. And so the area that this sidewalk will cover as it goes around the curve is my yard essentially. And that territory is pretty unfriendly for the installation of a sidewalk because, as you said, it isn't very flat and it kind of tapers downhill to the east. And there are at least 4 very mature trees along that curve, which are not that far from the curb itself. They're within 2 to 3 feet. So I'm assuming that means that all these, at least 4 mature trees are going to have to also be removed to accommodate this sidewalk? Was it determined that there was no other way to do this without cutting down all these trees? I mean, I get it, trees are in the way, but was it considered to maybe put the sidewalk on the other side of the trees by scooching it away from the street a short distance, or is that simply out of the question for engineering reasons?
No, anything could be done, but a couple of things. The trees are in the right of way. They're
Yeah.
too close. to
Yeah,
the
I get it.
sidewalk.
Yeah, they're too close to the street.
And the other, the farther we push the sidewalk back, the more costly it becomes
The
to
more
fill
difficult the terrain is.
fill
Yep,
and grade.
I understand.
And so far, with this design, either of these 2 designs, it's all on public right of way,
Right.
not on your private
Yeah, I
property.
misspoke. I didn't mean to say that that's my property, but beyond the right of way, you know. Okay, so the trees are gone. We'll share snow removal duties. The guardrail starts more or less where it did before, not all the way up to my driveway. There's a fire hydrant in the right of way in my yard, which I think is kind of about where the sidewalk is going to be. Is that going to be
Relocated.
relocated? Okay, so I can look forward to which direction will that be moved? Do you know?
To the southeast, away from the curb,
Away from the street.
behind the sidewalk.
Okay, on the other side of this, it'll be on the other side of the sidewalk when
Back
it's all
side.
said and done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
You know, that begs another question. What will traffic be like going through there during construction? Will a lane be maintained? Will it be closed off?
Oh, it will probably be maintained. It's not the greatest alternative on that blind curve, but for sidewalk construction, generally, you can maintain 1 lane if that's the desire.
I just hadn't thought about it, and seems like a good time to flesh it out. Yeah, it's not a good place on that blind curve for it, I agree.
How long does that take to typically, I mean, how long would you expect it to take to finish this project from start to finish? In other words, how long would it be 1 lane?
Oh, well, it would probably be on and off, as there's, of course, tree removal is one, and then there will be a lag time, I'm sure, to fill, to bring in material, to bring the sidewalk up to grade. And then there's probably another lag time until concrete work comes in. So, we decide on what, maybe less than a week for each of those items of work. And in between times, the road would be open.
Randy, and maybe Nelson, you weigh in also. Do you really see the necessity for all 240 feet of guardrail? Because once you get around the curve and it's flattening out and you're heading north, I mean, that old guardrail that Nelson talked about, people would be coming around that curve and maybe hit their brakes when it's icy or slushy or whatever. So it got banged. I mean, it was constantly, people were running into it when they were sliding periodically. And I have mixed feelings about the guardrail. I'd like Nelson to weigh in and what his thoughts are on it. But I'm just questioning why we need it for all 240 feet when once it flattens out and you're just heading north, your chances of sliding or, going over the curb for whatever reason, where we're placing the sidewalk, I think is pretty, it would take something pretty catastrophic, I would think, to, do you have any thoughts, Randy, and then Nelson maybe weigh in on his feelings?
Sure, I've got some thoughts. When you get into guardrail installation, there's a specific design criteria that you have to meet. The old guardrail didn't meet any of them, basically. So anything that's put in now, we would need to meet that criteria. And at this point, we believe that about 240 feet around that curve is necessary to meet that. It can be reevaluated, but of course, in addition to that, guardrail design has specific requirements for end sections, where it begins and where it ends. And so it will look more unusual than the other one did. There are certain requirements for begin sections and end sections on those curves. So that's part of the technicality of guardrail installation. It has to be done right, or it shouldn't be done at all, probably. So that we would plan on proposing what we believe follows the design criteria for it.
Randy, is this type of guardrail specific to sidewalks and such like that? And what I'm thinking is, as the rail attaches to the posts and such, and, you got the bolts sticking out the back and stuff. And I'm just seeing, a kid coming down and wiping out on his bike and, slicing his head open on a bolt back there or something. I mean, is this kind of designed for pedestrian type stuff, or is this what you normally see along the interstate?
This is guardrail, right? It's, that's again, in the design of guardrail, it has to be to stop the traffic. I mean, that's why it's there. It's not there to protect or for the pedestrian to hit. It's there for the traffic to hit. So it becomes a structure in there. And you're right there. That's why, we'd recommend a minimum offset of 2 feet. But still, there's the possibility of someone not only hitting a bolt, but hitting those posts, whether they're steel posts or wooden posts from the sidewalk side. And that is one of the hazards that you build into it if you build a guardrail in there. Mm-hmm. The reason, I guess, to expand on the explanation a little bit, we did propose or would propose to build this sidewalk at or above the curb level. Now that's where practically all sidewalks in town are constructed. And we don't have a lot of locations where people jump the curb and hit pedestrians on a sidewalk. So that is one of the design criteria that we decided to employ to help protect pedestrians in the event that you did not select a guardrail installation. So it should be, help somewhat. And then the 6-foot area for landing of a car, does a car really at 25 or whatever speed they're going on that curve, once they jump the curb, how far can they go? Or how far would they go at that speed? Maybe 6 feet, maybe more, but 6 feet is a cushion between that curb and the sidewalk. So good, bad, or indifferent, that's kind of some of the thinking on the way that sidewalk is being proposed.
Nelson, do you want to comment about your opinion on the guardrail?
25 miles an hour is a very conservative estimate for the way people drive around that curve. I can assure you, I can guarantee you that. No, I think the guardrail has to be there. I guess the only thing I would say anecdotally is a couple of times every winter we have tire tracks in the front yard in the vicinity of that fire hydrant, and it's always amazed me that no one, as long as I've lived in this house, no one's actually ran into that fire hydrant with a car that I'm aware of, because in the winter, at least 2 times a year, we will see, the path of a car that came down the hill, underestimated the conditions, ended up over the curb in my yard, and then somehow managed to miss the fire hydrant and then back into the street. And that is sort of the reason I was inquiring about the starting point for the guardrail. As much as I really don't want that guardrail, all the way up by my driveway, it probably would keep a car or two off the yard. But the downside to that is, instead of driving harmlessly up the curb and back into the street, they're going to be, pinballing off the guardrail instead. So that's the only thing I would say. I think it does clearly need to be there, to protect whatever pedestrians may happen to be there, and also the drivers of these vehicles, because there are still going to be trees in that vicinity. Hopefully they're not taking down all the trees. Some of the trees are still going to be there when this is over with. The ones that aren't in the right of way perhaps will still be there. So I don't know what to tell you about the guardrail. I mean, I get it's got to be there. I get it's going to be more conspicuous and than the previous one, but as you stated, the previous one was 100% inadequate it was dilapidated for as long as it had been there, due to impacts and just the wooden post being, totally compromised, and it wasn't really doing anybody any favors. So the guardrail's got to be what it's got to be. I'm not gonna,
I echo that belief. I seldom see people going 25 down there, and I've definitely watched people ricochet off the curb in the winter going down the hill, the curb, pardon me. I would be in favor of risking the guardrail and hoping that the offset on the back would be enough, or that we could put some sort of a protector over any hardware that was jetting out the back, because that is a valid concern too.
How far is that guardrail from the sidewalk? I looked at this, I couldn't tell for sure what.
No, it's not on the drawing.
Okay.
It can be a minimum of 2 feet from the sidewalk. That's why I said the sidewalk could move within 4 feet of the curb. Now, that's not necessary. We can maintain the 6-foot spacing between the back curb and the sidewalk and put the guardrail in that 6 feet. There'd be more separation between the back of the post and the sidewalk then.
You're also more likely to have a car hit the guardrail.
Well, it would hit the guardrail anyway. I mean, the guardrail is going to be right behind the curb. That's where it will be regardless of where you put the sidewalk. But it is 2 things: more spacing between the pedestrian and the guardrail post. And the other is a little more room for snow storage. They'll need to lift the snow over that guardrail in order to get it off the street. So it'll be buried in the wintertime, except maybe the face of it. And they always are. I mean, that's just the way it is. But it'll still be there.
Who's responsible for repairing the guardrail when the guardrail becomes damaged?
You'll be ultimately responsible for that.
Me, the guy who hit the guardrail, or me, the city council?
You as the city council,
That's,
unless you hit it.
Could go either way.
No, the city would be responsible for maintaining the guardrail, and whether it's an insurance issue with, whoever hits it, is a possibility too.
it'll be fairly stout from what you described, though.
Yes, I mean, it'll be designed and built to the certainly requirements of any guardrail.
Is this some SUDAS code coming into place again, Randy, or something different govern over this?
This would more likely be an Iowa DOT standard. Mhm.
Thank you.
Have you talked to the residents that are gonna hook up to Main Street? Was there 2 residents there that were gonna go in front of their property with the sidewalk?
No, I have not spoken with them at this point.
Is that part of the process? And if I understand right, you're looking for guidance from us, guardrail or not, so you can move forward with the process, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
So you're saying if we okay this tonight, we're gonna do the construction, or we're just gonna?
I would say that if you give the nod to this, either way, the plans will be prepared for it, and they'll come back to you for approval and then bidding. So that's kind of the process of
Well, I've spoken my mind. Anyone else have input on guardrail or not?
Just up to, I guess, to stress that as much separation as possible between the sidewalk and the guardrail
Mhm.
to reinforce Mike's observation. Yeah.
We can maintain the 6 feet. The limiting factor on the 6 feet is also the right of way that's available.
Okay.
And it does fit with a 6-foot border area behind the curb. And so that can be maintained with the guardrail in that border area.
Good. Okay. Thanks, Randy.
Sure.
I didn't hear you say guardrail or not, Carroll.
I just have a concern with those trees, they're nice looking trees, I hate to see, to me, it looks like right where the sidewalk's gonna go.
Mhm.
In front of
Pretty
people's
close.
property that have been nurturing those trees for a long time, and we're gonna go tear them out.
The ones on the curve or the ones in front of private property?
Ones in front of private property.
Mhm.
Yeah, typically, Jack always talks about when we remove a tree, we plant a tree, right? I mean, what happens here? I mean, we wouldn't have a room to plant one, to replant, it'd have to be in their property, right? Explain that, we don't want to go off a tangent here, but real quick, when we remove a tree,
Usually in the parks.
you're just talking about the parks when
Yeah,
we
we'll
do that.
go through, and if we remove 10 or 15
Okay.
trees in a season.
This is
we'll
not
try
in
to
that
come
type of program at all then?
No.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? So we have probably really 3 choices. We could not vote for anything. Or someone could make a motion on the first option, the $65,000 option, which would not include a guardrail. Or someone can make a motion for the $80,000 option, which includes a guardrail. So I guess I'll look for a motion for one of those 2.
Is that appropriate with this as a report? I don't know.
We need direction, that's what we're seeking.
So just direction to the
Motion.
So we need, okay,
Okay, well then I'd move to
your guardrail.
proceed with the plans, including the guardrail.
I would second that.
All right, and there's been a motion, a second with, is there any more discussion? All right, let's go to a vote then.
Base, yes. Cobb,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Haley,
Yes.
Fleischner,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
All right, we have committee reports that we can all read on our own. There's nothing else for this evening. However, we are going to hope to hopefully adjourn from here, but there is another city council meeting that we have going, and that's of great interest to the public, I hope. And that will be starting at 6:30 p.m. at the Carroll Public Library. It's scheduled for 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. And that's the Corridor of Commerce Plan 2.0 open house. There is a possibility of a quorum of city council members there. That's why we will possibly have to start our meeting there. But before we adjourn, I just want to remind everybody that we encourage both the public and the members here, anyone who's interested in that Corridor of Commerce, certainly go to the library here at 6:30, and I think we're be about a half an hour from now. So with that said, do we have any comments from the city manager?
None this evening, sir.
Okay, and city council? And then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. We'll go to a vote.
Base? Yes. Haley?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Fleischner?
Yes,
We are adjourned.
thank you.